Alright, so here's my prediction. If UFC 6 is a masterpiece when the game drops, people will say it is exceptional. If the game is exceptional when it drops, people will say it is a great game. If it is a great game when it drops, people will say it is a good game. And if it's a good game when it drops, people will say it is UFC 5.5, which essentially means it is the worst game they've ever played. Now, why do I say this? I say this because of the horn effect. The horn effect is a psychological phenomenon where one negative perception about a person, company, or thing makes you view everything else about them in a pretty negative light. It's kind of like putting on glasses with a smudge over just one lens, where no matter where you look, the smudge pretty much clouds your entire vision and it's all you see. Now, to put it in a way that you guys might understand a lot better, like imagine that there is a guy who's kind of short or doesn't have much money, or maybe both, right? This guy is interested in a woman and she sees him, and those traits are immediately what she sees, and it dismisses him right off the bat, assuming that he doesn't have anything to offer. But what if this guy is actually incredibly kind or funny or loyal and the type of guy who would treat her better than literally anybody else? What if? But because of that first negative impression, he's short and he has no money, she might overlook all of his other great qualities and completely write him off. That is exactly what is happening to EA right now in their games. Because of their past failures, players are primed to view anything EA releases with skepticism. It's not going to be good, regardless of the product's actual quality. And you can't really blame players for this. This can only be blamed on EA for consistently, over and over again, not living up to player expectations. UFC 5 is a perfect example of how the horn effect has shaped perceptions. And I'll explain. One of the most innovative features in UFC 5 was its completely revamped submission system. For the very first time in any MMA game at all, submissions could be performed without relying on a minigame. EA introduced a transition-based system that required countless new animations and also added a layer of realism to grappling. Now, as someone who loves jiu-jitsu so freaking much, this was a massive selling point for me personally. And to be honest with you guys, I really thought players would be just as excited about it as I was, but oh my god, was I freaking completely wrong about that. Most players literally did not give a shit about this groundbreaking feat. Like, a lot of people just straight up did not care. And you can't really blame them, if I'm being honest, because outside of the new submission system, UFC 5 looked and played way too similar to UFC 4. It wasn't drastically different in a way that was immediately recognizable, and as a result, people just straight up dismissed it as not only a lackluster improvement, but also a terrible game overall, aka horn effect. Like, UFC 5 is objectively not a terrible game. It's not a good MMA sim. It doesn't simulate MMA properly, but it's not a terrible game. But people will tell you straight up, it is a horrendous game. It's dumpster fire, it's dumpster juice, it's terrible, it's the worst game they ever played, because it's EA. EA has disappointed multiple times, and now, unless you produce a masterpiece, whatever it is you put out is not going to measure up. This is a huge problem. It's a really, really big problem, and it's why my advice to EA is going to be to overcome this horn effect and ensure that UFC 6 is well received. First of all, EA must first acknowledge the challenges posed by their current reputation. You guys are not being looked at favorably right now. For UFC 6 to be perceived as a great game, it has to deliver an exceptional experience that goes beyond all expectations. It can't just be a good game. It can't just be a great game. You gotta do something that literally no one has ever seen before. It has to blow minds. UFC 6 cannot resemble UFC 5 in any way, shape, or form. The game must not only be objectively better, but also visually distinct, which means completely revamped fighter models, striking animations, and grappling mechanics. You have to address every single complaint that players had about UFC 5 and make sure that when you put out UFC 6, not a single complaint that existed in UFC 5 is also existent in UFC 6. That will be a major blow. You have to innovate in key areas with a particular focus on fighter uniqueness, realistic footwork similar to what we see visually from a game like Undisputed Boxing, and also making sure that you're adding new striking tools like parries and hand fighting, and also separating high block and low block and making sure that low block does not do so much. For example, your ability to catch kicks, your ability to block kicks, your ability to check kicks, it does way too much. We need to separate these things and create a difference between the way the striking works in UFC 5 and the way the striking works in UFC 6. You need to retain the absolute best aspects of UFC 5 striking mechanics while avoiding unnecessary changes. Don't change it if it's not broken. What about the clinch and ground game? The clinch system needs a full revamp. It has been the same system since UFC 4 and players are pretty much sick of it at this point. Even if the issues from UFC 5 are fixed, a system that feels even remotely similar will be dismissed as inadequate. I'm telling you guys right now, you gotta change the clinch system. The ground game must include more positions such as butterfly guard, half butterfly guard, X guard, and cage seated positions. Players should be able to use the cage for wall walking and also scooting. We've been asking for that. This is a feature that existed in UFC Undisputed 3, for God's sake. If you release UFC 6 and you don't have these features, you guys are gonna be cooked, and it will be deserved. Takedowns should better represent the relentless nature of MMA wrestling. Bring back submissions like the Americana, knee bar, and the twister. Ensure the transitions between striking and clinching and grappling all feel seamless, creating a unified experience rather than a disjointed one where it feels like you're playing multiple different games in one game. It's gotta feel like an MMA game where you flow from striking to clinching, from clinch to grappling, from grappling to submissions, from striking. It has to flow really, really well. What about career mode? You guys have got to upgrade career mode, man. It needs significant improvements to stand out. Introduce interactive weigh-ins. People have been asking for that. We need smarter AI opponents, and we also need more meaningful fighter progressions. Provide us with a robust fighter creation system that allows for realistic customizations, including options like photo game face, if you guys can bring that back, or a similar technology that will allow us to get more accurate results. Give us more options for names, for God's sake. There's no reason why we don't have a name like Henry up there, bro. Like, it just makes no sense. The tattoo system is already really good. Hell, improve upon that. Give us more abilities to adjust the way our fighters' bodies look. Allow us to adjust the fighter's reach as opposed to capping it to a certain point. Hell, maybe you might even consider adding a story mode similar to the one that you guys did in Fight Night Champion. This will absolutely enhance the single player experience. Offline players need to be freaking valued. You can't forget about these guys. They are they are definitely the guys that are buying your games a lot more. You have way more offline players than you have online players. Introduce fan favorites like the Universe mode. Bring back Pride mode from UFC Undisputed 3, Title Chase and Title Defense modes also from UFC Undisputed 3. These are some incredible fun modes that will keep players coming back. It will add replayability to offline. Give us a replay mode, especially to us content creators, so that we can produce more engaging and high quality content. And when it comes to online, please, for the love of God, address the frustrations of online players with meaningful improvements. Allow players to choose their weight classes in ranked matches. Include settings to set ping thresholds and match only with players on wired connections. Games like Street Fighter and Tekken 8 already implement these features successfully. There's no reason why you can't do this. Ensure that matchmaking prioritizes stable connections so players can rely on smooth, competitive experiences every single time they get on ranked. EA has got to push harder than ever before, innovating across every single aspect of UFC 6. This is not just about making a good game or about making a great game. It's about restoring faith in the franchise and in the company. The Horn effect is real, folks. It is. And right now, EA is dealing with it head on, but they can overcome it. And the only way that they're going to overcome it is if they go all in. They got to push boundaries in innovation. They got to push boundaries when it comes to gameplay and improvements and presentation. They have to give us a product that we genuinely have never seen before. It has to truly look next generation. It can't look like a UFC 5 game. It's got to look like something, again, we've never seen before. That is the only way you're going to not only give people a product that they'll feel like, man, this $60 I just spent right now, man, it was absolutely freaking worth it. But not only doing that, but restoring faith in people so that next time they go, man, EA is making a UFC 7. You know how great UFC 6 was? I have faith UFC 7 will be good. Oh shit, EA is making a fight night. Oh my God, I have faith it's going to be good. Because right now, if you were to poll a vast majority of players right now and you would ask them, what do you guys think UFC 6 will look like? I promise you, a vast majority of players will tell you it's going to suck. And can you really blame them for saying that? You can't. You can't blame them for saying that. The Horn effect. And not only that, you have not met expectations yet. And so I'm just keeping my fingers crossed that I'm pretty sure UFC 6 is already in development right now. My hope is that they are currently pushing boundaries and that they are developing a product that is truly going to blow minds when we get our hands on it. That's the hope. Anyways, that's it for this video. Give me your thoughts in the comment section below. Happy New Year. Hope you guys are having a fantastic day. I'll see you boys tomorrow. Peace out. Have a good one.